Thanks for the lovely introduction. Like really, I'm coming at this very much from a migraine perspective because I have lived with migraine myself for so long. It's in my family. And what I'm sharing is very much my own personal experience and how yoga has helped me. And I came across just the other day online Instagram, I saw this meme and I kind of laughed thinking, yeah, it says, if you say chronic illness into a mirror 3 times, someone will appear behind you and tell you to just try yoga. And I know we've all had these helpful suggestions from people. And I know 20 years ago, if someone had said to me, would you try yoga? Would you try breath work? Have you drunk enough water? You need more fresh air. I would roll my eyes and said they really don't know what it is that I'm living with. They've no idea of the pain. But I have to say, yoga has helped me on many levels. So that's why I kind of feel there is something that I, would like to share with people and hope that there might be a few things that you might be able to take away and try for yourself. So whether you're living with episodic or chronic migraine, there might just be a few things that would help. So in my own experience, for my younger kind of days, I was very much episodic, but by the time I got to my late 20s and my 30s, I was living with chronic migraine, trying different treatments, trying different things. And thanks to the Migraine Association, actually, got a lot of help. And I'm now back to more episodic migraine. I'm on a preventive medication. I have a good acute plan for when I get attacks. I've learned so much over the years, but yoga has been a part of that. I thought we might, before we get into kind of getting into the slides and a bit more stuff, I thought we might just take a moment to ground ourselves and center ourselves. And always in yoga, we start our practice with the centering. So I thought we might just start that, because I know you may have had a busy day. I know I only just finished work half an hour ago, and you're probably the same. You probably have people at home who need you. So we might just take a moment and pause and just allow ourselves to arrive and settle. So you can do this with your eyes open or eyes closed. It really doesn't matter. But if you just want to take a moment and feel whether you might be lying in bed, I get that. You might be sitting, you might be driving. So just be a little bit aware if you're driving, just to pay attention to the driving rather than me. But if you want to take a moment, whatever position you're in, and as I say, eyes open or eyes closed, if you just want to take a moment and just feel whatever you're sitting on, just feel the support of the chair, the bed, the floor, whatever it is, just feeling the points of contact with the body and that support. And you might even just take a moment to see what else you can feel. So you might feel the clothing on your skin. You might feel the air around you. I know I'm sitting in a ray of sunlight. I have a lovely piece of warm sunshine warming my body. So just take a moment to check in and see what you can feel. And if you have the eyes open, you might take a moment to just notice what you can see around you. If you have the eyes closed, you might even just notice behind your closed eyelids what you can see. So it might just be light and shadow. Maybe you can see colors. And then just noticing all the things you can hear, everything you can see in your surroundings. So the sound of my voice. Maybe there are other sounds around you in the room you're in or the building you're in. Maybe you can hear some sounds outside. So just allowing all of those sounds to be there. You might just take a moment now to notice what you can taste. So just bring your attention to that sense of taste. And then finally bring your attention to the nose, noticing maybe what you can smell. And just becoming aware of the air as it enters the nostrils, becoming your breath. And just noticing your breath moving in and out. And you're not trying to change anything about the breath. You're just watching your own easy, natural breath coming and going. Just feeling the air entering the nostrils, becoming the breath. Moving down through the throat into the lungs. You might feel a little expansion and lift in the chest. Maybe you feel a little expansion in the abdomen. And as you breathe out, just watching the breath as it moves back out from the lungs, back out through the throat, back out through the nostrils. And just observing, watching your own breath. And as you're breathing in and out, just bring your attention to your hand. Just do a little movement with the breath, and you just go at your own pace. The next time you breathe in, just spread out the fingers of the left hand. And as you breathe out, just gently curl in the fingers of the left hand, just making a little gentle fist. And then do the same with the other hand. So stretching out the fingers and then folding the fingers in. And you can just continue at your own pace for a few rounds of breath. Just bring a little gentle movement, switching hands as you breathe in and breathe out. You're not trying to feel anything. You're not trying to change anything. But you can feel how your breath just slides into a nice steady rhythm. You might even find that it's beginning to slow down a little. Maybe you feel you can allow a little bit more weight of the body to drop into the support of your chair, the floor, bed, whatever you're resting on. And you can just let go of this little simple practice. And if you have the eyes closed, you can just open them then whenever you're ready. So that was just a really, really simple little way of grounding yourself. So just a nice little exercise. There's nothing to it, just breathing in and out. Your body knows how to breathe. So you're just giving yourself that little moment to do that. So I'm going to share some slides. Now, look, I don't expect you to look at the slides. You don't necessarily need to look at them. And I'm happy to share them afterwards for anybody who wants a copy. So I do appreciate you might be having a day with a lot of symptoms and you don't want to look at the screen, and that's absolutely fine. You can maybe just listen in, that's fine. But I'm just going to talk firstly just a little bit about why yoga might help migraine and what is yoga. There's a lot of benefits to yoga. Some of them you may well know. And you may have seen actually the presentation last month with Michelle, the chartered physiotherapist. It's available on the Migraine Association YouTube channel, and definitely worth the watch. I thought she did a brilliant talk. And she talked about exercise, and she mentioned yoga, which I was delighted about, but she had some really good advice on exercise, and she did a lot of data. We know there's a lot of studies showing that exercise can be very good to help prevent migraine. But I know personally what it's like when you're living with chronic migraine and you have a lot of pain, a lot of symptoms. It can be really hard to exercise, and it can be the last thing you want to do, even though you're being told it's good for you and it may help. So I think yoga can be a good way of introducing some movement into the body and some exercise. And years ago, I could do very little. And now I'm doing things. I'm going to a dance class and playing tennis. I'm doing things I never thought I'd be able to do. And I do think some of that is probably because yoga gave me a way into moving my body in a way that was safe and built up a little bit of strength, that I felt a bit more confident in going out and doing other exercise. So to go into it a little bit more, yoga can help with our posture and our body awareness. And we know sometimes with posture, particularly these days, we're all looking at phones, we're all dropping our head. So quite often, we have quite weak neck muscles or upper back muscles. So yoga can help build a bit of strength there. I've put in body awareness as well, because I know for me, what yoga really helped was recognizing the signs of my prodrome. So those early signals of when maybe an attack is starting that I would have just been totally unaware of, completely ignored, and then bang, the attack hit. Now I have much more of a sense of feeling things in my body, and maybe this is going to lead to an attack, and maybe I just need to take some action now. Recognizing and reducing muscular tension. This can be quite important too. So we want to feel better in our bodies, and we know that when there's more tension, our pain can increase. So anything we can do to reduce that muscular tension is going to help. And I definitely find I get way less of the milder headaches that I would have got in between the big severe attacks. So that's helped. We all hear that yoga can be very good for managing stress, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about stress in the presentation. And when we talk about stress, we talk about vagal tone. So the vagal tone is to do with your parasympathetic nervous system. And when we have good vagal tone or higher vagal tone, it means your body can relax a little bit faster after stress. And there's a lot of evidence now to show that yoga can be a really good practice to help with this vagal tone. So a little bit about that as well. And then in yoga, we do a lot of breath work, and that can be really helpful for relaxation. So like that little exercise we did, just a short little one, and there's loads of different breath work you can do. I'm going to introduce you to a few of those. Breath work can be helpful for pain management, nausea. I'm going to mention a couple of those, of ones that I personally have found helpful. One other thing that I've put on the list here is a lot of us get a lot of congestion, and I know at the moment I'm finding my hay fever symptoms are quite up, and I think that's affecting me. I had a migraine yesterday, and I suspect it was hay fever. And you know, you can buy these Neilmed sinus rinse bottles with the saline solution for rinsing your nasal passages, and that can help a little bit with that. That actually is a very old yoga cleansing practice called Jalaneti. Comes from the yoga tradition. So I think that's kind of interesting that people were doing that thousands of years ago, and now it's considered to be something quite good to do for your health. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I'm going to cover. Now I'm going to just mention in yoga we do kind of in the West think about yoga and the physical aspects of yoga. But in yoga, there's actually 8 limbs of yoga. And people sometimes ask me, what kind of yoga do you do? Or what kind of yoga should I do? No matter what kind of yoga you do, they've all come from the same root of hatha yoga. And that is made up of all these 8 limbs of yoga, we call them. And I'm not going to go into all of these. Don't worry, I'd have you all falling asleep. But just to let you know that asana is the physical practice. So that's the one people will probably be the most familiar with. But pranayama is a huge part of it. Pratyahara is withdrawal of the senses. I think those of us with migraine would be quite familiar to that. We like to withdraw from everything, close our eyes, have complete darkness, shut out everything. But there's a few other things in there as well. So just, you know, depending on where if you go to India, you would, you know, maybe have quite a different experience of yoga that you might have in going to a studio in the West. But just in terms of, you know, if you are looking for a yoga practice and what kind of yoga to look for, I think when you do live with something like migraine, there's probably a couple of little things to be mindful of. I would be suggesting, if you're looking for a class, to be looking for things like, you might like a restorative class that's going to be nice and slow, not a lot of movement. So perfect if you've got a lot of symptoms. If you see yin yoga, you might like to try that. That's quite slow paced as well. Yoga is another lovely slow practice. Somatic, if you see that word in anyone's classes, that's going to be a practice that might be good for you as well. The things I would just be a little bit careful are of the more dynamic practices. So Ashtanga yoga, Bikram yoga, or hot yoga, and Vinyasa, they are more the fast-paced, more dynamic type of classes. And I'm not saying don't do them. If you are quite fit and healthy and you like to move and you like something quite strong, you might love them. I have found when I was living with chronic migraine, I just couldn't do that kind of practice. I couldn't do the movement forward and back, up and down. It was just too fast. My head couldn't cope at all. I was getting too much vertigo as well. And with hot yoga, what I didn't like was I was drinking so much water before the class to ensure that I didn't get a migraine from dehydration, that it just took away from the whole benefit of the class. So they're just a couple of little things to be mindful of. And I think really just start where you are. And the beauty is, like, you don't need, you can do yoga at home, you can do it in your pajamas, you don't need to leave the house, you don't need any equipment, you don't even need a yoga mat. And there's so much available online now as well that you could just find some little short videos online. And I'm going to share some links to some of those just to help you if you're interested in some resources that might help. And why we think yoga can help with migraine or a lot of health conditions is a lot to do with the nervous system. So some of you may be very familiar with what I've put up here. This is our autonomic nervous system, which is made up of your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. So on the right, they're all the nerves that get activated when we go into fight or flight. So something happens, you get a fright, you know, people always talk about it, you know, the tiger jumps out at you, how do you react? I think in our world, it's more like, you know, you're in the car, somebody beeps at you, the phone is beeping at you, somebody's looking for you, you get a call at work about something. It just, these constant things that are at us are constantly activating the sympathetic nervous system. So when this happens, our body gets ready literally to fight or flight. What should happen then when the threat or the risk goes away is that our nervous system should switch over to our parasympathetic nervous system, where we're giving these signals down throughout the whole body to go, everything is okay, calm down, stomach can go back to normal, the heartbeat slows down again, our breathing goes back to normal. So that's what should happen. But of course, these days we are living with these constant triggers, things happening constantly. So we can get a little bit stuck where we find it a little bit more difficult to switch into this parasympathetic nervous system. So that's where practices like yoga, any kind of mindful movement, a lot of these things can really help with this. And we know that actually when you switch into the parasympathetic nervous system, you get different hormones released. So when you're in your sympathetic, you get your adrenaline, your cortisol, all those things that come up. I know for me, one of my migraine triggers is actually when that stress response, when all the hormones drop again, that's when I'm actually more likely to an attack triggering. So I have to be a little bit careful to get a little bit of balance, that I'm not going up and down, that I'm somewhere in between all the time. Easier said than done. But in that switch over to the parasympathetic nervous system, we're switching on things like our endorphins, and then that can all help with pain. And what's really important in all of this is our vagus nerve. So you may have heard of this. It's connected in with all the organs in the body. We really understand this, that we know our migraine's not just in our brain, it's throughout the whole body. And our vagus nerve is passing messages constantly up and down to the brain, from the brain down within the body. And we know that as people with migraine, we feel it everywhere. So I think we're very in tune with that and know that. So what we're trying to do with what's happening with practices like yoga, vagal tone, so that ability to be able to switch from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's why we think all these practices can help. And there's lots of things that can help. Like I've seen things online of people saying, with a migraine attack, put your hands into cold water. And that's to do with activating the vagus nerve. So the palms of your hands, there's certain parts of the body that can be a little bit more sensitive. And things like singing, humming, all those kinds of things, that also tones the vagus nerve. So you don't necessarily have to be doing a big practice. It can be those simple kind of things as well that can help. So we'll move on to talk a little bit about stress. And we know stress is not the cause of migraine. And I've put stress here, but I also probably should have put anxiety. I know for me, I would have always said, oh no, stress doesn't trigger my migraines. No, it's nothing to do with it. But actually, I would say anxiety has something to do with it. And a lot of the time I would have been anxious about things without even actually realizing I was anxious. Now I'm a bit better at recognizing those early signs. But if we think about stress, a migraine, or anxiety, migraine, it's not the cause, but we know it can exacerbate it. It can, it can either trigger things or it can just make things worse. I like to think of it as kind of just an overactivity in our nervous system rather more than anything else. And all these practices we're doing with that vagal tone activation, we're really just trying to dial down that stress response. And I found this image and I thought, God, wouldn't you just love to have a button in your head to press, not only for stress, if we just had a big migraine button in our head to click to turn off a migraine, that'd be amazing, but we don't. So what we can do though is just dial down that stress. So it's almost like turning down the volume for that response in our nervous system. And how we do this in yoga is through a few practices. So meditation, I mean, you all know what meditation is, and there's so many different forms of meditation. It doesn't have to be, and it's very rarely just sitting, doing nothing and trying to have an empty mind. For me, my meditation tends to be actually with a mantra. So where I'm saying a little phrase to myself maybe, and that gives me something to focus on. And the other things in yoga, we do relaxation. So every yoga class will finish with a relaxation at the end. Yoga Nidra is a deep relaxation state. To be honest, I think this is probably what I have found the most benefit from. So people will ask me often, do you do yoga every day? And I know they mean, am I doing physical? Am I moving? Am I doing poses every day? And I'm not. Some days I'm in too much pain or discomfort or symptoms that I can't. But I would say no matter what's going on in my life, Yoga Nidra is something I come back to again and again. And it's where you bring yourself into a very relaxed, deep state. You're you're still alert, you're not asleep, but you just drop into this state of relaxation. And it's actually it's like when, you know, we go through different cycles in our sleep, different phases, and we all do it in our sleep for about an hour and a half every night. So in yoga nidra, we're tapping into that same thing, and it's your brain has gone into a state where actually a lot of healing can go on and recovery. So it can be a very therapeutic thing to do. And I have links to share with that for anyone who might like to try it. It's what I do when I have an attack and I can't do anything else. I'm not able, because I'm in too much pain. I'm not able to relax. And I might find breath work a bit difficult. Yoga nidra, I'll always come back to again and again. And then I put breath work here because that's a really important part of yoga. For some people, that would be the most important. It's the part I probably do practice every day without fail. So these are the things we use in yoga to kind of reduce all that overactivity in the nervous system. And I've just put in a couple of other things that I was kind of thinking about last night, like specifically for people with migraine. You know, I think we're very state with migraine, we're always thinking, oh God, is that going to be a trigger? Am I going to get an attack? Do I feel my prodrome starting? We're constantly thinking. And when we practice mindful practices like yoga, meditation, we can kind of switch off that hypervigilance and we can become a little bit more present. And the thing about perception of pain and rewiring the brain. So you may have heard the term neuroplasticity, and it's this idea that our brains are plastic. We can change them just because something has been a certain way for a long time. Maybe we've lived, I know I've lived with migraine for 35 years and my migraine has changed over time. And I often think to myself, okay, but there's been phases where it has gotten worse, but I know that also means that it can get better. My brain is not going to keep getting worse. It can has gotten better. So when we're working with practices like yoga, I think this can really, it can really help, and we can kind of rewire sensations maybe aren't as threatening. Because I know certainly for me, the first sign maybe of a migraine starting, I can go into kind of a panic. Oh no, oh God, this is going to be awful. What's going to happen? And that then just exacerbates everything. It just, I can go into free fall, changing kind of how I suppose reframing it and kind of going, okay, this is bad right now, but it's not going to be bad forever. It is going to go away. It's gone away before, it will go away again. So those kind of things, the more you practice them, you can shift a little bit. And it's not about, you know, faking it till you make it, or it's not about having some kind of toxic positivity, because that's just not helpful at all. Real, and our symptoms are very, very real. But it's just about reframing it a little bit. And I've also put that being, I think, actually, I think when we're in the midst of a migraine attack, we're never more present than in that moment. We are completely in the moment with the pain. So I think migraine people are very present already. But I do think in between attacks, or, you know, if you're living with chronic migraine and you're constantly in a state of symptoms and not feeling well, I think we can, you know, certainly I know I can get a little bit caught up in like going, God, yesterday was just so awful. And I can get a little bit caught back. Oh, that migraine was just so bad and my day was ruined and I had to cancel things. Or I'm, you know, worrying about, oh, what if I get an attack on Friday? I have to do this presentation online, and what happens if I can't do it? And we can be very, you know, switching between all the going, you know, the fear around and the unpredictability. I mean, we've every right to be fearful of our next attack and what's going to happen. But I think if we can do these practices to just be present now and go, you know, step away from it and go, okay, maybe I will get an attack, but I'm not going to worry about something that may not actually happen. So practices like yoga can be a little bit more present. And I think if you're practicing yoga a long time, accepting what is becomes a part of your practice as well. And accepting something like migraine, it's not about, you know, giving up and going, oh, well, I just have it, just it, and I just have to get on with it. It's accepting where you are at any given moment. So it's accepting, like for me, I had an attack yesterday and I just thought, okay, and I have to get through the day. And it was about accepting, okay, well, I accept that this is where I am right now. And there's actually not a lot I can do about it. I'm for the help that I need. I'm going to tell my colleagues, actually, can we postpone that meeting because I'm not firing on all cylinders today. I'm not thinking straight. And I would not have been able to do that 15, 20 years ago, but through my practice of just accepting whatever it is that's going on, that's my yoga practice has definitely helped with that. So moving on, where I would start, if you're new to yoga, and I appreciate a lot of you may be doing yoga already. I think it's become so mainstream, everyone knows a bit about it. It's not like years ago where people go, what is it? And they think of people just sitting, meditating and standing on their head and that kind of thing. But I would say if you're new to yoga, I would start with the breath work. And I think this is very beneficial to anybody with pain and anyone with migraine symptoms. And I've put up some links here and I will share them. Breath work in yoga, we call it pranayama. So prana is your energy, your life. And what we do with these pranayama practices, it's saying it's breath work is fine, but actually it's a much deeper thing than that. So in yoga, the belief is that we're actually controlling our energy. So if you think about it, when maybe you get a fright or you're upset about something and your breathing changes, we tend to breathe a little bit more up in the chest when we're anxious or upset about something. And in yoga, where the idea is that by actually controlling the breath, you can reverse that effect on the brain. So if you can do some deep abdominal breathing, you'll feel your body beginning to maybe settle and relax a little bit, let go of a little bit of tension, but you might find that your mind becomes a little bit more settled as well. So it's this idea of your breath having this effect on the body and mind. So when we have an overactive nervous system as well, we do our breath a little bit more. So I would say when you're in pain or maybe you're feeling a little bit anxious, you feel a migraine at the beginning, it can be really helpful to have some very simple breathing practices to do. So I'm going to share these links with some videos because there isn't really time to go into all of these. The first one is the abdominal breathing, which is really simple. You just put your hands on your tummy and just allow your tummy to be completely soft and breathe in and out. And I know a lot of us go around wearing really tight, yoga leggings or, tight jeans and stuff, but actually you want to do where you're not wearing something tight and you can just let everything be soft and see, can you take those nice deep abdominal breaths. So you could check out that link and do a little bit of practice. The second one I've put there is alternate nostril breathing. So that's where you're literally alternating breathing in through the left and right nostril. So a little bit like we did with the hand movement earlier on. It's that same kind of idea. But the idea is in yoga that you can balance out your nervous system by doing this alternate nostril breathing. And Shitali is the next one I've put on the list, is one that I have personally found helpful for nausea and vomiting with migraine. So I thought that might be a useful one to share. And it's one of the few practices in yoga where we breathe in through the mouth and out through the nose. So if you're able to roll your tongue, you roll your tongue. Otherwise, you just open the lips slightly and you take a breath in. And then you breathe out through the nose. Okay. So I've shared a link to more instructions on that. And it might be one worth trying. A lot of people, women who are in perimenopause would say they find it helpful as well for when they, for temperature regulation or when they're just feeling very frustrated, that kind of thing. It might be a helpful one, but certainly I have found it very helpful for nausea and vomiting. So that's my tip. And the last one I've put on the list, and we might just try this one just for a minute. It's called the humming bee breath, Bharamari, and it's so simple and a really good one for pain. And it's what I would do if I was lying in bed with severe pain, waiting for my triptans to kick in and bring down that pain. So if you want to try it, all you do is you breathe in through the nose and then you have your mouth closed and you just hum out the breath. It's as simple as that. So we might just try 3 rounds and you have your microphones off. So no one else is going to hear you, but you just do it in a way that you might close your eyes as well. Just draw all the senses in. And as you do the humming, you just feel the vibration going on in your head. So let's just do 3 rounds. If you want to join in, as I say, no one can hear you. So breathing in, and then you start to hum. So it's a really simple one. You could try and practice and see if you find it helpful. And again, that it's that the buzzing, it's that vibration is toning the vagus nerve. We think that's why it can be helpful. Okay. So I've put together a few other tips, kind of general things, and we're going to do a little short practice. But if you're doing a class and you're new to yoga, or maybe you've been doing yoga a long time, but maybe migraine is new to you. So just a few little things I'd be a little bit careful of, and this is whether you're going to start a practice at home or you're going to classes, and you're finding that your migraine is beginning to affect things. These might just be a few little tips that would help. And I would really suggest my first tip is just take it slow and do what's right for you. So you might feel you don't want to go to a studio, that you might be happier at home, and that's absolutely fine. You don't necessarily have to go to a class. I think developing your own practice is actually really beneficial because you'll tune into more of what you actually need. But I would say just be a little bit careful of things like, your neck. If, I know neck tension and pain can be a big symptom for most of us with migraine. In fact, I started yoga because I thought if I could just stretch my neck enough, maybe I wouldn't get these migraine attacks anymore. And I didn't understand at the time that, of course, the migraine had already started long before I felt the neck pain. So actually, I was going about it all the wrong way, but still. I would just be a little bit careful of, quite often you'll see pictures of people, or a teacher might say to you, and lift your gaze, and you just want to be really careful. Your head is quite heavy. You don't want to shorten the back of the neck. So you might prefer to keep looking forward. Certain poses, teachers will say, and turn your head and look up. I know in some of those I'll feel quite dizzy. So I prefer to keep looking forward for some poses or keep my head slightly down. Sun salutations I've put there. So they are, it's a very popular sequence that a lot of people would teach in their classes. I really struggled with these when I started yoga because of my migraine. I just, the whole movement up and down, I was always way behind everybody else. It took me so long to stand back up for my head. So slow down, take your time. Don't worry about it if you're in the class and you're behind everyone else. So what? No one else actually really cares. And your teacher just wants you to be comfortable in the class. And I've just put in a little tip here about strong breath work. Sometimes if you look online on breath work, you're going to find a million videos suggesting loads of different things. And I'd be very, very wary of anyone suggesting anything that they go, do this and it's going to cure your migraine. We know there's no cure. So, anyone who's making any promises about anything like that, just, walk away. I would just start with very simple breath work. Often people will teach breath work and they'll suggest that you hold the breath. I would suggest don't do any breath holding for the beginning. Just breathe in and out. Just keep it nice and simple. And over time, you might introduce a little holding the breath at the end of the inhale and the exhale. But I would start with it just being quite simple. And I think just remember, there's no one size fits all. There's no yoga practice that suits everybody. So just do what feels right for you. And I would say, think about, especially if you're doing some yoga at home, just think about, how do I want to move today, rather than, oh, I should do this. Or, people like to sign up for these like 30-day challenges online. I can never do those because my body feels very different and my brain feels very different every day. So I have to think about what do I need right now today? I'm feeling nervous energy. I'm feeling a bit anxious. I want to do something that's going to unwind and get my nervous system down. Then there's other days where I'm feeling exhausted, maybe feeling a little sluggish. I've had a migraine yesterday. Today I'm feeling a little bit low energy. Maybe I want to do something that's actually going to stretch out some of the tightness in my body. I would certainly recommend you pace yourself. Don't worry about anybody else. If you're in a class, you just go at your own pace and do what's right for you. If you're going to a class, don't be afraid to talk to the teacher about the lighting. A lot of teachers might use scented candles or essential oils or incense. My worst nightmare is incense in a yoga class. And even music. I sometimes play music in classes, but sometimes I don't. I'm very conscious of music can be not helpful for everybody, and taste in music can be very personal as well. So a teacher will want you to be comfortable. So don't be afraid to tell them, I can't stand that incense. It makes me feel awful. And actually, I didn't put on here, ventilation is a big thing for me. So if I'm okay if I'm in a yoga class for an hour, but if I was doing a full day workshop, I have to make sure I'm sitting somewhere in the room where I feel I have ventilation, or I will absolutely definitely halfway through the day begin to get a migraine. Another little tip, In yoga, we do a lot of things lying down, and the practice will often start and finish lying down. And I know the first few years I did yoga, every time I lay down at the end of the class, I just felt really dizzy and unwell. So if that's the case for you, just put something under your head. Just doesn't have to be, maybe just an inch high. It doesn't have to be too high, just to keep your head tilted slightly so you won't feel quite so dizzy. And be mindful of your hydration and blood sugar levels. People will often talk about doing a yoga practice on an empty stomach, but if you're living with migraine and you're going to a class after work, you maybe do need to eat something. So don't worry about this thing about practicing on an empty stomach. Just eat something light. And just make sure you're doing what you need to do to keep your blood sugar levels okay. So that's kind of my general little tips on classes, and if you want to do a practice at home. And I thought we might just do a little short practice. And sorry, on my slides, I've put a few notes for myself so I remember what I wanted to do. So if you feel up to doing a little, we're going to keep it really gentle, and you can do this sitting on the floor or sitting in the chair. If you've been sitting down all day like me and you prefer to stand up, you can do it standing up. So totally up to you. And if you don't feel up to doing any of this today, that's absolutely fine too. So I'm just switching my screen because I wanted to make sure I can see myself. You can see me? Yeah. So if you just want to sit comfortably on the floor, or if you're lying down on the bed, that's fine too. You could do a little bit of movement. Just figure out what works for you. And all we'll do is start by taking the hands overhead, interlink the fingers, and just turn the palms up and place the backs of the hands on the crown of the head. Okay, so see if that feels comfortable. And if that feels okay, what you're going to do is bring the elbows back a little bit. Okay, so you'll feel your shoulder blades squeezing towards each other, and it might feel tight. And all you're going to do is, as you inhale, just think about pressing the crown of the head up into the hands. So you'll feel your spine beginning to lengthen. You'll feel yourself getting a little bit taller. As you breathe out, just feel the ground or the chair underneath you. So feeling your feet connected with the ground. Maybe your thighs, your buttocks. So you're just still feeling connected with the ground. And as you inhale, just now press the palms up towards the ceiling. So the arms will begin to straighten and you're just reaching and lengthening up. And then as you exhale, unlink the hands and let the arms come down. And then just take your hands to your thighs or your knees. And all we're going to do is inhale and lift the left arm, reaching it up. And as you exhale, let the arm come back down. And as you inhale, let the right arm extend up. And it can be coming up 2 inches, or it can be coming up right up beside the ear. And you lower it on the exhale. And you can go side to side at your own pace. But the next time you extend the arm up, just turn the head away from the arms. And now you're getting a little neck stretch as well. And these are just so simple, but you just get a little bit of stretch into the shoulders and into the neck. And you might just be noticing what's going on. Maybe there's a bit of tension and tightness there that you didn't realize was there. And you just move nice and slowly. And the next time the right arm comes back down and the head comes back to center, you can just pause there. And we'll take our fingertips to the shoulders and we'll just roll the elbows around. So it doesn't have to be a huge circle. You could start quite small. And again, this is just giving me a little bit of feedback. And I know for me, sometimes I'll do these and go, I'm way more tight and tense than I realized. And that's when I know, okay, maybe I need to do something because this might actually aggravate a migraine, necessarily cause it. And then at a certain point, you can just reverse and go the opposite way. So these are, and if you're having a day with a lot of pain and tightness, you might just keep this really, really small, not a huge movement. If you're feeling things actually feel okay today, you might make the movement a little bit bigger. So you're just loosening up, just noticing what's going on there. And then you can lower the hands back to, and all we're going to do is drop the left ear towards the left shoulder. Now, I know for me, I get really tight along the muscle here. So you know the way there's a little notch in there behind your ear, and that's where I get really tight, and it goes right down my shoulders. And for me, it can go right down through the side of my body. So sometimes I'll just start with some little simple stretch like this. And you might see if it might feel okay. You could turn your head so you're towards your shoulder. And I would have days where I can barely move, and then other days the movement feels quite good. So don't, just go with whatever feels good today. Judging and saying, oh God, I could do that yesterday and I can't do today. Just accept that whatever's going on today is what's going on today. As you inhale, you might like to take the head just up slightly, looking out to the side, and you can turn the head back to center. And I find these are really nice to do in the shower under the hot water, actually. So you might try that. So you could drop the other ear towards the shoulder now. So feeling the stretch now going down the neck. Maybe you might be feeling it across the top of the shoulder. And you can pause here, or you might like to turn the head to bring the nose towards the shoulder. See how that feels. And then on an inhale, letting your gaze lift up, looking to the side, and then returning the head back to front. And that might be your practice on any given day. You might do just that, and that would be absolutely enough. That would be fine. Another few little things I like to do with my shoulders is to just raise my arms up. And as I exhale, just bend the elbows, palms facing forward, and I can feel my shoulder blades squeezing in towards each other. And as I inhale, reaching the hands right back up. Exhaling as I bend them again. So even that little bit of movement of bending the elbows, squeezing the shoulder blades in, I could feel all these little points that are quite tight, niggly. And just do one more. And then we'll extend the left arm up, take the other hand just down beside you. And the arm can be straight or the arm can be bent, whatever feels comfortable. And all we're going to do is do a side bend. So you're just going to tilt over to the side, stretching out through the side of the body. And as I said, I get a lot of pain down through my body when I have a migraine. So I like these kind of side bends. They feel really good for me when I get that pain going right down my shoulder, right down into my lower back, right into my buttock and down into my thigh. I quite like these kind of stretches. As you inhale, come back up. As you exhale, lower the arm. And as you inhale, let the other arm extend up. It doesn't have to be straight. You can keep it bent. If it feels too much effort to straighten it, that's fine. And you just ease yourself over to the other side and your rib cage up away from the hips. And you might even bring the arm back a fraction. Just find that point that you feel you're getting. And this can be another place where you might play around with the neck and the head as well. And you just move slowly at your own pace. You might drop the ear towards the shoulder. You might turn the head a little bit. So just see what feels okay. And on an inhalation, bring the arm back up. And as you exhale, let the arm. And then if you're seated, you can do this, or you can do it standing. This can be very nice to do on all fours as well. And if you do yoga, you'll be very familiar with Kow Pose, and it's just a nice spine. So all you do is on an exhalation is allow the chin to move towards the chest, let the shoulders round, and you just round the spine, releasing forward. And then as you breathe in, lift the chest, roll the shoulders back, and let your head come up. Okay? And you move between the two. And if you've got migraine today, if you're not feeling great, you might only move the head very slightly, and you might let a little bit more movement come into the upper back or the mid back. So just move. Inhaling as you lift and lengthen, the chest lifts, you feel the back arching. As you exhale, just let the tummy draw in slightly, and you allow the shoulders to come forward, rounding slightly. Head may come down. And it can feel quite nice when the head releases down. You might even just pause there for a couple of breaths, feeling that nice stretch going through the sides of the neck. You might even be feeling it going down between the shoulder blades. So at a certain point, if there's anywhere that you feel you want to pause, hold there for a couple of breaths, you can do that. You're just moving nice and slowly at your own pace. And slowly coming back up. You could finish by just doing a little gentle twist. Now I'm sitting in a chair, so I'm going to take my hand to hold the armrest. You could just take your hand to the outside of your thigh, and then the other arm can reach behind, anywhere that's comfortable. You might find if you slide forward on the chair, you can take your hand back to hold the other side of the chair, but just go with what feels okay. And all you're trying to do is a bit of a twisting movement into the spine. And I know for me, this always feels really great in my shoulders when I either, when I'm in an attack, but I'm able to move, this can feel really good. So you can just hold there for a few. You don't push, you're not forcing, but just seeing if you can get that little bit of rotation, and you just let the head be carried. And on an inhale, you can just nice and slowly come back around to the front. And as you exhale, you can twist to the other side. And you just make this movement as big or as small as you like. But you're seeing, can you let the rib cage move around, the chest, the shoulders, the head, and just holding for a few breaths here. And then nice and slowly on an inhale, returning back to the front. So that full sequence to just help reduce some of that. And I focused on the neck and the shoulders because I know that's where so many of us with migraine have all that tension and pain, that anything you can do that will release that will help. And what I've put on these slides that I'm going to share is just a few photographs of some other stretches that are a little bit stronger. So one, we call it eagle arms. That's a little more intense. We're taking the arms back. So I'll share those because they can be quite helpful for working a little bit more into those tighter areas. And I've some other slides here I'm going to share with you. We don't have time to do them, and it's a bit tricky to do them online, but I thought I'd share them because these are the ones that I think can benefit people with migraine and the ones that I know have benefited me. So forward bends in yoga, we would consider these to be very calming and relaxing. So when you're in that kind of highly activated nervous state, these are the ones that are going to bring you back down. So there's a few examples here. Some of them, it looks like they're in yoga studios with all their props and blocks and everything, but you can see just the going forward, releasing forward. And in all of these examples, they have a lot of support. So this lady at the bottom has pillows there. She's releasing forward and that's taking the weight. So if you were to do something like a restorative yoga class, these are the kind of poses you would do. And these can be really helpful for either coming into an attack or after an attack when you're feeling really tired and you just need to wind down. I think these could be quite helpful. Maybe during an attack, they might help, but I know sometimes going forward might not be the most helpful thing for you. You might need to turn your head to the side. On the next slide, I've put some supported back bends. So in back bends, I think they could be really helpful when you've migraine because we spend so much time curled over in pain. So I quite like them for stretching across the tight muscles in my chest and getting that little bit of openness. The examples I've put here are lovely supportive, restorative versions as well. Now, when you have a migraine, you might not want to do these. It might feel comfortable, but in between attacks, these can feel really nice to get into the little bit of, if you've tight muscles in your upper back and stuff, these can feel really good. So I've put some photos there. I'll add in some links. I'll find some links online with a bit more of an explanation to share with you because these might feel quite good to practice as well. And then this is one of my favorite poses. It's called Viparita Karani. This is a great one when you're just exhausted. I can't do it when I have an attack and I'm in pain. It just doesn't feel good to be in. But if I know I'm a little on the edge and I'm maybe at risk of getting a migraine, this is sometimes a good one for me to do. So you can do it like the lady there with her legs straight up the wall. If you have any lower back problems, you might prefer to do it with bent knees. I like to do it with way more clothes than that lady has on. I like to do it with blankets over me, hot water bottles, really cozy and warm. And it's one that just brings, if I'm upset about something or I'm angry about something, and they're certainly for me big triggers for migraine, this is a pose that I find just brings all that down, and I find I'm not as angry as there was, I was upset. So I found it really helpful. It can be really helpful to do when you're really tired as well. And the picture on the right, this lady has her knees bent and her legs on a chair. I teach this a lot, and I'm fortunate enough to have chairs in the room that I teach in, and the people I teach love doing it with the legs on the chair rather than up the wall. The lady in the picture is really lucky. She has the luxury of loads of bolsters under her as well, but you could use whatever you have at home to just get comfortable. So I think that's a really useful pose to do. And I've put another one here, Supta Baddha Konasana, it's known as, or supported coddler pose. And I always like to include this one because it's a really beneficial one for women. So I also live with endometriosis and have had a lot of pelvic pain over the years, doubled with migraine. And this pose is really helpful for anyone who maybe is having a lot of pelvic pain at any time of the month. This is a nice one to do. And you can see one of the ladies here has loads of blankets. She's an eye pillow. She's tons of props there, making it really comfortable. And that's what I would say, just get really comfortable, really supported, and you can really release into this one and feel really held and supported. It's a really lovely pose to do. So there are just a few examples of poses that I think are helpful. Sometimes I think people think of yoga being very strong and making different shapes, or doing a very slow kind of practice with constant movement. A lot of yoga is actually just about lying down and being still. So, and that can be really helpful. A lot of us live very busy lives and we need this more than movement. So I have a ton of resources here. So I'm going to tidy these up, and I'm going to make sure all the links are actually still working before I send it to MAI, but they'll share it with you then if you want. So I have some helpful videos, because I know you can go online, you can find loads of stuff, but I sometimes think people, you'll find, yoga for headaches, yoga for migraine, and I watch them and I go, this person hasn't a clue about migraine. They've never had a migraine. They wouldn't do that. So just a few things I found that are helpful. There's loads of meditations and guided relaxations online, and I think it's really just about finding something you like. But here's a few suggestions. There's loads of apps available. Yoga Nidra is what I said earlier, that lovely deep relaxed state. And so I have a few links there just to help you get started, and these are all free. There's a lady called Vidyamala Birch who does a lot of work on chronic pain. She can be worth checking out as well. She has some free videos, and she does a lot of breath work. She's very interesting to listen to. And then I have a few app links there. And the first one I've put, mindfulness.com. I do think you can do a free trial, and I know I can send a thing for a free 30-day trial. If anybody wants to try it, I can send you, just get in touch with me and I can send you on the link to do that. But I would say anything you're doing online, just work at your own pace. If something doesn't seem right for you, find something else. The other place, if you're looking for a teacher, I trained with Yoga Therapy Ireland. I also tutor for them. I'm tutoring on their advanced skills course on their neurology section, because I'm adamant that more yoga teachers need to understand about migraine. So I've kind of snuck my way in there to kind of get migraine on their agenda, that more teachers understand a little bit more. But they could be a good place to start. They have on their website a whole list of teachers, so that might help you. Or feel free to get in touch with me. I can see, can I help you find somebody as well if you'd like to go to a class. And then here's my contact details. So I'm happy for anybody to get in touch with any questions. I know MAI can pass on my details as well. I'm not very good at being active on social media, but I do have an Instagram account. I have a Facebook page. I don't really post too much yet. I have all these great intentions of doing a little bit more for people with migraine. Just there's not enough hours in the day. But I do have a link there. I'd love to do, I know before COVID with MAI, I did do some in-person workshops, and I was thinking about doing a few more of those where we could do some of those restorative poses and, work out some things together, and you have a chance to ask more questions. So if anyone's interested in doing that, you could sign up. I have a newsletter link there now. I won't be sending you, I don't even know when I last sent a newsletter. So you're not going to be bombarded with loads of stuff. Absolutely not. But if you are interested in just hearing about any event that I might do, it would be good for me to just know, maybe drop me a line and let me know where you are. And I can see, can I find a venue that might suit? And it would be really lovely to meet you and maybe do a bit of practice together. So that's everything from me. There was a lot in it. I'm sorry, I did warn Naomi, I'm a bit of a talker and talk a lot. But if there's any questions, I'd be very happy to see, can I answer them?